Jax's revenge domain. George Henderson looked me dead in the eye across that conference table and said, "Blood runs this company. Hank. Always has, always will." The room went quiet. Not the kind of quiet you get when someone says something polite. The kind of quiet you get when something breaks and everybody knows it. There were 12 people at that table. Quality engineers I'd hired, production supervisors I'd trained from scratch, my 2 senior process managers who had been with me for over a decade. Outside the window, I could hear the press brake running its cycle. One of our machines stamping out automotive brackets. Inside, nobody moved. They all just stared at the conference table like the wood grain had suddenly become fascinating. My name is Howard Mitchell, but everyone calls me Hank. I'm 49 years old, and for 24 years I ran Henderson Precision Components out of Akron, Ohio. Not on paper, not with a title anyone outside the building would recognize, but in every way that matters in precision manufacturing, I built that company. I should back up. I met Linda at a technical conference in Detroit when I was 25. She was sharp and honest in a way that made me feel like I'd been going through the motions my whole life before I met her. We got married 18 months later. Her father, George Henderson, ran a small machine shop, 8 employees, a rented building on the east side with equipment that had seen better decades. He offered me a job as quality supervisor. I took it because Linda asked me to, and because I thought I could help. I had a background in manufacturing engineering. Community college, 5 years at a component supplier in Toledo. Nothing fancy. I was just a guy who understood how tight tolerances worked and where most shops bled money without realizing it. Henderson Precision was bleeding from just about everywhere, so I fixed it one problem at a time, 1 year at a time. I renegotiated vendor contracts in year 1, built a statistical process control system from scratch in year 2, taught myself the software on weekends using my own laptop, landed our first automotive contract in year 3. By year 8, we had 35 employees and ISO certification. By year 15, we had 85 employees, 3 production lines, and a $12 million annual contract with a major automaker for critical suspension components. George gave me the operations manager title somewhere around year 10. No equity, no formal ownership agreement, just a title and a salary of $78,000 that hadn't changed in 3 years, even as the company I was running had tripled in revenue. Here's the thing about working inside a family business when you married into it. You're never really inside. You're always the son-in-law. The helpful one, the guy who keeps the machines running so the real family can take credit at Thanksgiving dinner. I understood that for most of those 24 years. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself the work was enough. Then George's son Owen graduated with his MBA. Owen Henderson was 31, well-dressed, and had exactly 0 days of manufacturing experience. What he had was George's last name and a head full of business school frameworks that had never been tested against anything real. He came into the company talking about lean optimization and value stream mapping. Meanwhile, he couldn't tell you the difference between a 0.001 tolerance and a 0.005 tolerance. Couldn't read a capability study. Couldn't explain why we ran setup validation on every new lot. I trained him anyway because that's what you do. For 16 months, I walked Owen through every process I'd built, every client relationship I'd developed, every supplier qualification I'd structured over 2 decades. He took notes and nodded and occasionally used phrases like operational synergy in ways that made our machinists look at the ceiling. But I was patient. I figured George was easing him in, building him up gradually, and that there'd be a real conversation at some point about what the future structure looked like. There was a conversation, just not the one I expected. George called the quarterly operations meeting on a Tuesday in April. I sat down expecting a standard review. Instead, George stood up, thanked the team for a strong quarter, and announced that effective immediately, Owen would be assuming the role of Vice President of Operations and taking full operational control of Henderson Precision Components. No heads up, no phone call the night before, not even a conversation in the hallway. I looked at George. He met my eyes for exactly 1 second, then looked away toward the window. I asked as calmly as I could manage what my role would be going forward. And that's when he said it. Blood runs this company. Hank always has, always will. 12 people in that room, the press brakes still cycling outside, and every single person at that table suddenly found something very important to look at on the floor. I sat through the rest of that meeting for another 40 minutes, smiled when it was appropriate, nodded along with the discussion about second quarter projections, shook Owen's hand at the end, walked back to my desk, and closed my laptop. On my desk was the process documentation binder I'd kept for 24 years. Black vinyl cover with metal rings, worn smooth at the corners from handling. I'd bought it at an office supply store in Toledo the week before I started at Henderson, back when I thought I'd be there maybe 5 years, learn the family business, figure out a next step. Inside was everything. Every process specification I'd written, every supplier qualification protocol I'd developed, every customer approval document with my signature on it, every tolerance adjustment I'd made with notes on why, contract renewal cycles, the names of procurement officers at every automotive company we worked with, their direct lines, their preferred communication styles. 24 years of institutional knowledge in my handwriting, none of it on a company server, none of it backed up anywhere George or Owen could access. I picked it up and just held it for a while. The statistical process control system I'd built lived on my personal drive. I'd developed it on my own time, on my own equipment, before Henderson had any kind of IT infrastructure worth mentioning. There was no intellectual property assignment clause in my original employment contract. George's lawyer at the time was a general practice guy who mostly did real estate closings. The system that had reduced Henderson's scrap rates by 22% over 6 years and given us a competitive edge on every automotive bid we'd won. It had never been formally transferred to the company. I also had something else that I'd almost forgotten about until that moment. My name was on 3 patent applications for manufacturing processes I'd developed over the years. Not George's name, not Henderson Precision Components, my name. Howard Mitchell, as the inventor, with my home address listed as correspondence address. I'd filed them myself through the patent office, paid the fees from my own pocket, thinking someday it might matter for the company. Turns out it mattered for something else entirely. That evening, Linda called. She'd already heard from her father. She was quiet on the phone in a specific way. I recognized the quiet of someone who'd already had the argument and lost. She said she was sorry. I told her I wasn't going anywhere yet, that I needed a few days to think. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already started thinking the moment I walked out of that conference room. I took 3 days off, told the office I was working from home, which I did, just not on Henderson work. I sat at my kitchen table with the process binder open and went through it page by page, not out of nostalgia, out of calculation. Here's what I found on day 2. Our 3 largest automotive contracts, combined worth just over $10 million annually, had all been negotiated by me personally, not in George's name, not under a general company contact. My name was the primary technical contact in each contract with my direct phone number in the performance clause. 2 of those contracts contained specific language requiring continuity of the designated process engineer as a condition of quality compliance. I'd written that language myself during negotiations years ago without thinking too hard about what it meant for me personally. I was just trying to protect the company's client relationships. Turns out I was protecting something else entirely. I pulled up the actual contract documents on my personal laptop, copies I'd kept for my own reference over the years, and read those clauses 3 times slowly. Then I looked at the statistical process control system I'd built in year 2 and updated every year since. It lived on a personal drive. I'd built it on my own time on my own equipment before Henderson had any kind of IT infrastructure worth mentioning. There was no IP assignment clause in my original employment contract. George had never thought to ask for one. His lawyer at the time was that general practice guy who mostly did real estate. I closed the laptop and sat there with my coffee going cold. I want to be straight about what happened next because it would be easy to make it sound more dramatic than it was. I didn't feel like some guy in a movie who just discovered a secret weapon. Mostly, I just felt tired and very, very clear. I'd spent 24 years treating this company like it was mine, because in every functional sense it was. I'd acted in good faith every single day. I'd shared everything I built without ever asking for protection in return because it never occurred to me that I'd need it. That wasn't naivety exactly. That was trust. And trust, I was learning, is worth exactly what the other person decides it's worth. I thought about Vincent Hayes. Vincent owned Hayes Advanced Manufacturing out of Columbus. We'd crossed paths at quality conferences over the years, shared a table at an automotive supplier dinner once. He was the kind of guy who asked technical questions about capability studies and process validation and actually listened to the answers. He'd reached out to me twice in the past 3 years with standing offers. Nothing aggressive, just a standing offer. His last message about 8 months back. Hank, doors always open here. We value experience. Gray hair means wisdom in this building. I'd ignored it both times, out of loyalty, out of habit, out of the belief that eventually the people you build something for will recognize what you built. On the third day, I called him. "I was beginning to think you'd never actually pick up the phone," he said, and he sounded genuinely pleased, not smug about it. We met 3 days later at a place on the outskirts of Columbus, a spot we'd eaten at twice before after industry conferences. No white tablecloths, no power dynamics baked into the decor, just good food and a straight conversation. Vincent was in his mid-50s, built like someone who'd operated machines before he'd learned to read P&L statements. He asked smart questions about process capability, automotive quality standards, supplier management systems. He didn't need me to explain the basics. That alone told me something. The offer was $95,000 base salary, 6% profit sharing, senior VP of manufacturing operations over 3 regional facilities, a team where the average experience was 14 years. And then he said something I'd never once heard in 24 years at Henderson. Your name goes on every process you develop, and if you've built systems on your own time and your own equipment, we have a formal acquisition process. Fair valuation, you get credited. I drove home that night thinking about the statistical process control system sitting on my personal drive and the patent applications with my name on them. Linda was still awake when I got in. We sat at the kitchen table for a long time. She said, "My father built a shop. You built the company he is now." "Those are 2 different things, Hank." She said it quietly, like she'd been holding it for a while and had finally decided to put it down on the table between us. I told her I was going to call Vincent back in the morning. She nodded and said, "Good." I called Vincent the next morning, told him I was in. We agreed on a start date, 3 weeks out. I typed up my resignation letter that afternoon. 2 weeks' notice, clean, professional, no editorializing. Printed it on plain paper, not company letterhead. That felt right. Before I submitted it, I did something else first. I opened my laptop and drafted 3 separate emails, one to each of the automotive procurement engineers I'd worked with over the years. People I'd built real working relationships with, not company relationships, not George Henderson relationships, mine. The emails were formal and straightforward. I informed each of them that I would be transitioning out of my role at Henderson Precision Components, that my last day would be in 2 weeks, and that going forward I could be reached through Hayes Advanced Manufacturing in Columbus. I included Vincent's company contact information and noted that I would be personally overseeing manufacturing quality operations in my new capacity. I didn't badmouth Henderson, didn't editorialize, just informed them of a change in my contact information, which I was fully entitled to do. Each of those contracts listed me as the designated process engineer. Notifying the relevant parties of my status change was not just my right. In 2 of the 3 contracts, it was technically my obligation under the quality compliance clause. I sent all 3 emails, then walked the resignation letter down to George's office. He was on a call when I knocked, held up one finger without looking at me, finished his conversation, then leaned back in his chair the way he always did when he was about to say something he'd already decided. I put the letter on his desk. He read it in about 10 seconds. 2 weeks, he said. Not a question. 2 weeks, I said. He asked where I was going. I told him Hayes Advanced Manufacturing. His expression shifted. Not anger exactly, more like someone who just realized they'd left the shop door unlocked during a storm. He asked if we could talk about a different structure. Maybe a shared arrangement with Owen, some kind of partnership model. I told him about the Hayes offer. He said they were overpaying for my experience level. I told him that was between me and them. He said he hoped this wouldn't complicate things with Linda. I said that Linda and I had talked it through and were good. Then he said, "I built this company from nothing, Hank." I looked at him for a moment. "You built 8 guys and some old equipment. George, I built the rest. We both know that." I walked out before he could answer. The next 2 weeks were strange in the way that endings always are when nobody wants to admit something is ending. People who'd barely acknowledged me in the hallway for years suddenly wanted to grab lunch. The senior quality inspector, a guy named Phil who'd been with me for 13 years, stopped by my desk the second day to say he'd heard the news and that he was sorry to see me go. He didn't say much else. He didn't need to. We both understood what my leaving actually meant for the people who did the real work around there. Owen started following me around with a notebook. He had questions about everything. The automotive approval process, the supplier audit schedules, how we handled capability studies, why we ran particular inspection sequences on certain parts. I answered every question patiently, completely. If I was going to leave, I was going to leave clean. But there were two things I didn't hand over. The first was the statistical process control system. Nobody asked me directly about it, which told me that Owen didn't fully understand what it was or that it existed as a separate standalone tool. To him, it probably just looked like the company's manufacturing processes ran efficiently. He didn't know there was a specific system behind it, built on a personal drive, updated on my own time for 24 years. I wasn't going to volunteer that information. It wasn't deception. It was simply not giving away something that had never been theirs to begin with. The second thing I didn't hand over was the automotive relationships. On my last Friday, Owen stopped by my desk around 400 in the afternoon and asked if I'd set up transition calls with the automotive procurement contacts so he could introduce himself before I left. I told him I'd send him the contact information, which I did: names, emails, office numbers, everything that was in the public contract files. What I didn't tell him was that those procurement engineers had already heard from me 2 weeks earlier, that they already had Hayes Advanced Manufacturing information in their files, that when Owen called those numbers on Monday morning and introduced himself as the new VP of Operations at Henderson Precision, he'd be talking to people who already knew where I'd gone and who were already wondering whether they needed to rethink their renewal conversations. I wasn't burning Henderson down, I was just not carrying their water anymore. I cleaned out my desk on that last Friday afternoon. The process documentation binder went into my bag first, then a photo from the previous Christmas, Linda and me and the girls on the back porch. Rachel grinning in an Ohio State sweatshirt she'd worn almost every day since her acceptance letter arrived. Sarah wearing her varsity soccer uniform. Both girls had started looking at colleges seriously. The informal scholarship fund that George had mentioned years ago at a family dinner, never written down, never formalized, had quietly never materialized. George hadn't said a word about it, neither had Linda's mother. It just disappeared the same way a lot of George's promises did. Gradually and without acknowledgement. We were paying for college ourselves. It was tight, but we were managing. I picked up the photo, put it in my bag, and took one last look around the workspace that had never technically been mine. No door, no nameplate, just a desk near the quality lab, because open floor plans promote collaboration, or so I'd been told. Through the window, I could see the production floor. 85 people running 3 shifts, every routing decision behind every part built on systems I'd created. I walked out at 5:15 on a Friday and didn't look back. Monday morning, Owen started making phone calls. My first week at Hayes Advanced Manufacturing felt like stepping into a room where the air pressure was different. Not better or worse at first, just different. Nobody called me the son-in-law. Nobody CC'd George on emails to keep him informed. When I walked into a meeting and said something, people wrote it down and then actually did it. I had a real office, door, nameplate, window facing the production floor. I spent the first 3 weeks doing what I always did when I came into an operation. Listening before talking, mapping before moving. I sat with the quality technicians, walked the production lines to understand how Hayes Manufacturing actually behaved versus how it looked on paper. I found 6 inefficiencies in the first 2 weeks that nobody had flagged because nobody had been looking at the right data. Vincent didn't hover. He checked in once a day, asked one question, and left me to work. That was new too. We began integrating the statistical process control system into Hayes operations in week 4. Vincent's team had formally acquired it through the process he described at dinner, documented fair market valuation, my name on the acquisition filing. It wasn't a fortune. That wasn't the point. The point was that for the first time in 24 years, something I'd built was officially, legally, unambiguously mine, and then mine to sell on my terms to someone who understood what it was worth. Within 2 quarters, process capability across Hayes' primary production lines had improved 19%. Scrap rates dropped. On-time delivery numbers went up enough that Vincent put them in the company's automotive bid documentation, which was being prepared for a major suspension component contract, covering the Great Lakes region, the same region as it happened, that Henderson Precision had supplied for the past several years. Both companies submitted bids. I knew Henderson's numbers better than Owen did. I knew their cost structure, their capability limits, their weaknesses in high-volume production. I didn't use any of that information improperly. I just built the best bid I could with Hayes' actual capabilities, and Hayes' capabilities now running on better systems with better data were genuinely stronger. The automotive contract went to Hayes, $8 million over 3 years. The week after the award was announced, my phone rang, Akron area code I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Owen. He left a message that was a full 4 minutes long. The short version, Henderson was struggling with 2 automotive account renewals. Some of the contacts weren't responding well to him, and he was wondering if I'd be willing to consult informally, maybe just a couple of calls off the books to help smooth things over. He said George didn't know he was calling. He said he'd really appreciate it. I listened to the message twice, then I called him back. I told him I'd be glad to help in a formal consulting capacity. My current rate for external manufacturing consulting was $200 an hour with a 4-hour minimum and a 3-session retainer required upfront. I told him I could have a contract drawn up within the week if he wanted to move forward. He said he'd have to think about it. He never called back. George called 6 times over the following month. I let everyone go to voicemail. Each message was a variation of the same theme. Consulting opportunities, bringing my expertise back in a different capacity, substantial compensation. What happened to the family? The 6th message had an edge to it that the first 5 didn't. He mentioned the word loyalty twice. I sat with that word for a day. Loyalty, 24 years of 600 a.m. Start times and supplier calls on Saturday mornings and quality audits that ran until 9 at night. 2 decades of treating their problems like my problems, because I'd stopped being able to tell the difference. If that wasn't loyalty, I didn't know what the word meant. And if it was, then George had gotten 24 years of it for free. I called him back on a Sunday morning. He picked up on the second ring, started talking before I could say anything. The company, the restructuring, the board conversations, how much had changed since I left. I waited until he stopped. Then I said, George, you told me blood runs that company. You were right about that, and I hung up. 3 months later, I got a call from a reporter at Manufacturing Today. She'd heard about the contract win and wanted to talk about the process methodology behind Hayes' bid. We did a 30-minute phone interview. The article ran the following month. My name in the headline, my photo in the print edition, a full description of the statistical process control system I'd built and what it had done for Hayes' operational numbers. First time in 24 years, my name had appeared in print in connection with work I'd actually done. Vincent framed a copy and left it on my desk without saying anything about it. I noticed it when I came in Monday morning. I left it there. Around that same time, I found out through Linda that Henderson Precision had sold 40% of the company to a regional competitor to stabilize their cash position after the contract loss. George stepped back from day-to-day operations not long after. Owen stayed on in a reduced capacity. At the Great Lakes Manufacturing Excellence Conference in Cleveland that fall, Hayes Advanced Manufacturing was recognized for the contract win and for the operational improvements we'd posted over the previous year. Vincent said a few words, then introduced me as the architect behind the work. I shook some hands, answered some questions, talked shop with people who understood what I was talking about. Linda was there. She'd driven down from Akron for the evening. She stood next to me during the reception in a blue dress I hadn't seen in a while, and she looked like someone who'd made a decision and was at peace with it. On the drive home, she told me that Rachel had made the dean's list again her sophomore year. Sarah had gotten early acceptance to 3 universities with partial academic scholarships. We were still paying for most of it ourselves, but every dollar was clean. Here's the thing I want to leave you with because I've thought about it a lot in the 2 years since all of this happened. I spent 24 years building something inside a structure that was never going to give me credit for it. Not because the work wasn't good. Not because they didn't know the work was good, but because the structure wasn't designed to see me. I was the son-in-law, the helpful one, the technical backbone that made it possible for other people to stand at the front of the room. I'm not bitter about it. Mostly because being bitter would mean I regret the work and I don't. The work was real. The processes held. The parts ran to specification. You can be proud of something you built, even if someone else put their name on it, as long as you eventually understand what's yours and what isn't. Here's what I want to leave you with. If you've spent years running someone else's operation, a family business, a company that had your fingerprints on everything but your name on nothing, you already know what I'm talking about. You've felt it, that slow realization that loyalty only runs one direction in certain rooms. So know what you actually own. Not what you've contributed to. Not what you've been allowed to use. What is legally, documentably, provably yours. Your relationships, your systems, your methods, your name in the right clause of the right contract. Document everything, date everything. Understand the difference between their property and your leverage, and when the day comes, don't leave angry. Leave prepared. That's when everything changes. Know the difference between being valued and being used. If they can't function without you, but won't give you ownership, you're not an employee. You're a hostage to your own competence. The people who benefit most from your loyalty are often the least willing to earn it. Family businesses will take 24 years of your life and call it a favor they did for you.